Hey, it's Ashley. Welcome to the Abundant Soul podcast. In this week's episode, Steph and I get into the theme of comparison and the impact it can have on our self-worth, self-image, and our own personal journeys. We get into the concept of surrendering and letting go of the attachment to outcomes, and also sort of embracing the unknown, as scary as that can be. You'll hear us share about our challenges and what I like to call growth moments that ultimately helped us shift towards a path of authenticity or being our true selves. You'll also hear us share about tools, exercises, and people that helped us in these different experiences we've faced and still face today. The journey of self-development and growth is not linear, and a lot of times we don't get to choose the order of events. And a lot of times it's not always sunshine and rainbows. There are times we feel stuck or stuck in the muck. However, it's all about the journey, not the destination, right? Sometimes it's not always easy to remember that. All right, let's get into this week's episode. Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
Very good. How are you feeling today?
Good. I'm feeling really good.
So today we were thinking about starting our episode with a carpool. Did we say carpool?
Yeah.
I'm thinking of carpooling when I say that. So not the same thing.
Yes.
So we actually already chose the package, but we chose the surrounder.
Yes, The Power of Surrender. By Judith Orloff. I love these cards. Okay, so knock the old energy out. I'm going to set an intention. What do Steph and I need to know today? And then let's shuffle here. For this one, I'm just going to shuffle once and then split the deck. I'll just do that. Okay, so for today, surrender comparisons with other people. Keep your eyes trained on yourself. Focus on your own strengths, attractiveness, and power.
Ooh.
Today's card. Love it. Love it. All right, so what comes up for you when I read that?
I was going to ask you the same question. I think it deeply resonates. The comparison with others, the triggers that it brings, I would say mainly in social media. When I used to go so often in social media, now I kind of step back, but I'm almost back into that loop again. So I'm watching me very closely. But the comparison with like all the people, mostly women, I have to be honest, where they are in their journey and comparing it with myself. And thinking that, you know, if they could do that, I cannot do that. Like, I'm not there. I don't have the skills. Like, they had an easier, quote unquote, easier life. Or they had all the opportunities and I'm here and I'm like stuck and I can't do that. Like, all the reasons. It's basically finding all the excuse why I'm not in that place and looking at them and being like, oh, but they have the talent, they have the gift. It's, you know, they are inner leaders. They were born like this way. So, and it used to really like get me, like really being like, oh, so it could be on Instagram, but it could also be friends, right? Like friends launching their own business. And I have a friend, and I told her actually, like one day I saw one of her launch video that she made, and it was so beautifully done. Really, like honestly, beautifully done. And I got jealous. And I got jealous because I wish it was me in that video. And I start to compare my prestations, like how I speak, how I do, how I behave, how I am not at all there in my journey. I don't have a business. I don't have anything to launch. But like seeing her, how like the way she spoke, how confident she looked, the decor behind, the transition, like the video was perfect. And again, I got jealous because I compared. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like, you spot it, you got it. What you see in others, where you start to compare yourself, it's because you don't see the same value in you.
Wow.
So I kind of work on that. And I told her, I was like, well, your video and like beautiful video. And I got jealous. So, and because she's into that word, she was saying like, oh, that's the best compliment that you could make to me.
Wow.
So
wow.
That brings like, that card really resonates with me.
Well, thank you for sharing that. It's interesting to me how different ways like comparison can come up. Because like sharing about like your passions, especially something that you really want to do, you know what I mean? Like seeing your friend's video and then it's like, why wasn't that me? Or dang it, I want that. And then it's almost like you start to think about you should have done this, or like you had all this time, you could have recorded your own video. And it's almost like you kind of start to be that inner critic or think about all the things, the coulda, woulda, shouldas, you know, instead of growing that gratitude for, wow, this is something really cool that she created. I can pull some ideas from that, or this inspires me. It's almost easier to shift into that, I want that. Like, I want that for me. Wow. I think for me, I'm noticing the comparisons. This is like a huge loaded topic too. I feel like there's so much to unpack here because in the past, I feel like I would view comparison a different way, like maybe comparing myself to others in different ways. But right now, for me, where I am in life, I'm noticing I do this with work and relationships. So one thing that's interesting, so I'm in a newer relationship, romantic relationship right now, and we haven't talked too much about like past. And a part of me was like, man, I really want to know about their past relationships. And then I was like, hold on a second. I like stopped myself, which was interesting. And I was like, what is the reasoning? Is there value in it? Or are you going to compare yourself? Is that going to like, you're going to be like, oh, I am, you know, this, that, or the other compared to that person. And how is that going to play out in how you show up in the relationship? So that just like hit me to my core when I sat there. I remember I was in my bathroom, like, I was like, wow, like getting ready to shower. And I was like, okay, no, like I'm wanting to know this information for the wrong reason, because that's like a little ego part of me wanting to compare, like, okay, let's see like how you measure up or whatever. And I'm like, that's not what it should be about. And it's kind of the same thing for work. Like if I have a task, like for example, like, okay, write a newsletter. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, I can do that. And then when it sits down to time to do it, I'm like, well, what do other people's newsletters look like? Should I ask? Should I come up with my newsletter and send it to someone else and see what they think? And it's like, I'm slowing myself down with all this comparison, where if I can focus my energy on, wait a second, what do I want to create? What do I want to do? I mean, but that's easier said than done. It's that comparison, I feel like, kind of goes hand in hand with our inner critics, our egos, our fears. You know?
And I love what you shared actually about, there is a difference between sharing your work, like the newsletter, to hear feedbacks, because you need constructive feedbacks to be able to grow. Or like sending it just to have a validation. And sometimes the comparison, because obviously you do your research, you may go and see what others are doing and how you can use it and improve it. And So, but if you start to compare your work with others' work and you send it just for validation that your work is good enough, then it's still like the comparison. Oh, well, have you seen my work? Is it good? Is it good? Do you like it? Yeah, yeah. See, it's better than this one.
Ah.
So it's the huge difference between constructed feedbacks or the needed validation.
Right. Right.
And often, relationship is the same.
Yeah.
Because you need the validation of why this person, why your partner is with you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if you know the past relationship and how they were, like you will start comparing, oh, well, she was prettier, she was smarter, she was more adventurous, and I like to stay home. Is he okay staying home? Oh my God, is he okay staying home? He used to party all the time. Oh my God, like I can, maybe I will push myself to party, and then you lose yourself by trying to please others. All because you start comparing with others. But why do you do that? Because you want to make sure that he values you. So it's, you want to be valued.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, that is hitting home because I feel like self-worth and self-confidence is like my biggest lesson and my toughest lesson. And all these, if you look at like my astrology and you look at like past readings and all these things that I've had, it all comes down. Every reading that I've had is like, wow, your little soul is centered on, learning lessons and breaking through limiting beliefs around self-worth. And I'm like, nothing else? Nothing else? You don't see anything else in there? Am I supposed to be like some cool like explorer or something? It's just all inner stuff. But you're so right when you said that about relationships, because like when you were sharing about like the comparing yourself to social media and things like that, I was like, I don't think I really do that. Not that I'm comparing or like that anything's better or worse. I'm just recognizing in myself my biggest comparison. It has to do with like relationships, whether it be romantic or work related. Like, I think you're right. Like the validating, like, am I worthy? Like, do they see value in me? And, that's hard for me to say out loud because it's like, I feel like I always talk about like that all comes from within. So it's like I need to hear myself say that. Like, yes, it's a bonus. It sprinkles on the cupcake when other people see your value, reflect it back to you, talk about it, give you feedback. But I think the most important is yourself, because once you value yourself and you celebrate your uniqueness, and you get to that point where I have something to share, whether it's speaking, a newsletter, love, when you're like, I'm so excited to share this, and you just share it out there with the intention of just putting it out there and it's what you created, that's when like everything ripples out in goodness and everyone can feel your authenticity. And by you being authentic, that's just like makes them, it like opens a door for them to be like, yeah, I can be myself. Ashley's herself. That's awesome. And
I love like it. It gives permission.
Yes.
And that's huge. And I want to piggyback on that, on like valuing ourselves. Once you start valuing yourself, you will stop comparing and you will get inspired. Because what's the best way to get inspired and grow? Because, well, we, as human, we cannot be good in everything that we are doing.
Right.
And when it's the first time that we start something, well, it's not going to be perfect. But the next time will be better and better. And then you receive feedbacks, and which hopefully are constructive, right? We don't want like only negative just to be negative. But once you start hearing the feedbacks, well, first of all, you have to be ready to hear feedbacks that are not super positive. But it's not said in a mean way. It's said on, hey, you may need to improve that because that didn't work. But if you have the value, like your value, you won't take it personally. You'll be like, oh yeah, you are right, I can improve. Then you will be open to learn. You will be open to go and look for what are others doing. Or you could directly go to that person. Let's say it's a blog or a newsletter. You could write to that person and say, hey, can you teach me? Because I love what you are doing there. Can you teach me, guide me? Like, what and how are you doing that? What gets you inspired? So I can follow your path. You won't do plagiarism, right? You have your own styles because you are authentic. However, your authenticity, you learn from others. You learn from others, like pieces here and there from that person, and you construct like your own knowledge from that and your own organization skills.
Yeah.
But that starts with yourself and what you shared, like authenticity. Because also, if you are not authentic, and you go see that person, and that person's like, oh, well, that person wants to copy me. Like, you can feel it, right? Like, if you see they're successful, you see that you love what they're doing, but you're like, I want to do that. But that person would be like, no. You want to take what I do and like put your name on it, maybe change some words. It's not going to work because you are not authentic. But if you are and you're like, can you guide me, please? Can you give me cues? Like, I want to learn to be to that level. Well, I'm sure that of those person will be so happy to help.
Yes. Oh, okay. I want to pause on this topic because, and I want to know if you've ever done this, because I feel like with our listeners, this is something I would highly recommend doing. I did it twice this year and it was very uncomfortable in the beginning because I was working with a coach at the time and we did this visualization and she was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, what's coming up for me is like, I just see myself like working at these retreats, like healing people just by like helping them and being with them, all this stuff. And she's like, all right, well, how about you reach out to a couple of people who are doing that and just schedule an informational interview with them? And I was like, what? And I freaked out and I was like, oh my gosh, this feels like school, like what? And I sat with it and I was like, okay, no, this will be really good. And much like what you said, if I'm authentic, not that I'm, wanting, give me your playbook, I want to step-by-step repeat what you did, just more of, I want to pick your brain. I want to learn from you. You are somewhere where I want to be, and I would like to learn your story of how you got there. So I did muster up the courage to do it, and I spoke to 2 different people who, run retreats. And they were, one, extremely touched that I reached out to them. They're like, you want to talk to me? And I'm like, I'm putting them on this pedestal, not really meaning to, but I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, I got to get up the courage to ask them. But again, I didn't have a list of questions prepared. I didn't send them anything. I wasn't like, here are the bullet points. Not that that's a bad thing, but I was just more like, I just want to talk to you for 20, 30 minutes. I want you to share your journey with me because I'm trying to draw inspiration from it and see, like, I want to visualize myself where you are. So again, I did those 2 interviews earlier this year. And I would just say for anyone who is thinking that, because this also kind of goes hand in hand with imposter syndrome, right? Where you're like, oh, well, people are already doing it. There's so many people, so I'm not even going to try. But I would encourage you to, because one, there's always like medicine, I feel like, in 2-way conversations. And 2, just like what you said, Steph, you can draw inspiration from it, not necessarily view it as a step-by-step of here's the directions of what I need to do and copy, but there's going to be something in that conversation, that informational interview, where that just sparks you, especially if you're having a conversation about something you're passionate about. Your little soul's calling is like, yes, we're talking to this person, we're moving in the right direction. And when that happens, I feel like you just know because you get off that call and you just feel energized. You have maybe more clarity. You have excitement around things that maybe before were scary, or you felt blocked, like I don't know which direction to go. So that can be a really good exercise, as scary as it is to start and send the email, send the message, make the phone call. I think it's something really cool to do for you to receive that information, but then also for that person to give that information. So it's a really cool back and forth.
I second that. I've done it once actually. And to me, it gave me clarity that I don't want to do that. I wanted to be a yoga studio owner.
Oh, wow.
Yes, you didn't know that about me.
I didn't know that about you.
No, so I was doing Ashtanga yoga at the time. I was still in Canada. And I was passionate about yoga. I loved going to the yoga studio every day. I loved the vibe. And I was like, I want to be a yoga studio owner. I want to be like an Ashtanga yoga studio owner. And after talking with my husband was like, well, go ask the owner. Like, you know her. I didn't know her personally at that time, but I was like, you see her. So she was like, ask. So I ended up asking her, and we grabbed a cup of coffee, and we discussed for like 2 hours, I think. And after that, I came home and I told my husband, I am not going to be a yoga studio owner. Like, I don't think I wouldn't say the strength, but the reason why I wanted to do that was not the right reason. Like, I think I wanted to be surrounded by yoga all the time, but you have the business there. Yes. So it's not like all flowers and yoga every day. Like, you still have to continue your practice. Ashtanga yoga is a very disciplined practice. So you practice like 6 days a week, and the real practice is like a 2-hour practice. So I used to do that, wake up like at 4:30, and at 5 I was at the studio. So you still have to do that because you have to have your own like personal practice. But on the side, it's the yoga studio with everything that comes with. And to illustrate that, she was like, come and work with me. So I came, so it was volunteering, but so you will be able to see how, you handle things, you have customer service, how you organize the classes. So I went for about a month, something like this. And I was at the reception. So, it's being at the reception, and she was doing it all. And after a month, I'm like, no. Well, actually, after our discussions, I knew I didn't want to do that. But to really second it, like, I spent a month there. And then she closed her studio. She ended up closing the studio. So, but she was she still is actually, very business oriented. And from that conversation, we built a friendship.
Oh, wow.
So we ended up going to an Ashtanga yoga teacher training. Actually, she already done that, but her teacher, so we met her through him through her, and I ended up doing the yoga teacher training thanks to her, because she let me know that there was that in Montreal. So I ended up going with 2 friends. So and we stayed friends for quite a while. I haven't spoken with her quite a bit now. She moved to Ontario, and I moved to the US, so distance. But yes, that's one discussions led to few years of like really good friendship and talking yoga.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love what you shared about that too, is that while sometimes we may draw inspiration from it, like you said, like it might also show us, what we don't want, or that it's like, this path is not something I'm interested in. Because, it is, running a yoga studio is a lot of work, and it's, I think, having your practice and then working in a yoga studio are two separate things. And I'm with you on the like, oh, if I work at a yoga studio, then I'm just going to feel so good all the time and get to do yoga every day, which I mean, that can be the case, but oftentimes more than not, it's a lot of what you shared, the customer service, operational things. Like, oh, the lights went out, or hey, we have to switch the filters out, or you know, like just little things. You're like, oh, I would much rather be doing yoga right now than doing these things. But yeah, so I love that you shared that. And then again, all that came of that, you know, that relationship, because you reached out, because you built that connection, and then it just kind of rippled out from there. And there were other opportunities to do cool things.
And I want to add that too, there is respect that was built from there. Because first of all, I discovered that we had exactly the same age, same year. So I was like, okay, wow, you are my age and you are doing that. So at that time, I didn't go to the comparison. I could have taken that route where I was like, oh my God, we are the same age and you are there and I'm there. And I didn't. Because, like, it comes back to knowing ourselves. We're like, I am so not there. And this is not what I want to do. But I really have so much respect for what you are doing. Because that is not my path.
Yeah.
So that created that respect also for her. And I got to know her personally. And I was like, oh, that is so much fun. And that's really not my path. So yeah, you can have so much from one conversation just by go over your fear of reaching out to people. And you may have no's coming or even like no answers from that.
Right.
But then it's a good way to practice non-attachment.
Yes. Yes, that's true, because when I sent some emails out, I didn't get responses from some people. And at first I was like, okay, maybe it's going to, like, I started rationalizing it in my head, like, oh, it's been this many days, maybe they're busy. And then the gal that was like, yes, I was like, okay, I'm going to put all my energy in that because there's a reason, you know, so, but yes, it can be difficult to have that expected outcome in your head, thinking, oh, I'm going to get 8 replies back and I'm going to schedule 8 interviews and learn so much about this. And then when you get one back, instead of being like, okay, where are the other 9? It's like, yes, I got one. Awesome. And it was a really good conversation. And yeah.
And the non-attachment piece can work in every area of your life. Like, I'm currently unemployed. And I've been applying to jobs and ask everyone who is out there in the market, like, so many times you send your resume and you never get answers. And I think the average is like when you send, say, it's 1 answer out of 10 that you receive, something like that. And for now it matches. So practicing non-attachment, even like if it's a job that you are very, very much into, like you see that you are a great fit, and there you have to make sure that your ego is not on the way, because like I had some jobs where I'm like, that's me, this job is for me. Like the job descriptions, it's so me. So I really like tailored my cover letter, like the CV, everything. I was like, they have to call me. Right? At least for the interview. After the interview, it's something else. Like, you know, it's the energy. Like maybe we don't, you know, we realize that you are not a great fit, but at least the job descriptions, like I expect them to call me. They did not call me. So I was like, okay, my ego, that's just my ego. Maybe they already had something. Maybe the job description is not 100% what they are looking for, right? Or maybe they see something in my CV, maybe I don't have the experience, like who knows, right? But it's like not taking it personally.
Yeah.
So the non-attachment, that's a huge thing. And again, I know so many people that are out in the market right now that are looking for jobs. Some of them, it's been a year. Some of them, it's been 2 years. I see some things on LinkedIn. It's so hard. It comes back to rejection, right? It's like people not answering back, or you get interviews and sometimes you don't get answers after that. 5 years ago, for one company, I had 2 interviews, and then when it came to the answer, I never got the answer. And I followed up, and it was gone and vanished. So, again, like, it's the non-attachment. If it comes, it comes. And sadly, I think that nowadays, we have to really work on the non-attachment because everything goes so fast. People receive so many, like, resumes or, like, emails. They cannot answer to everything.
Right.
So 2 days is a very great era to practice non-attachment.
Right.
When you are selling stuff on Facebook Market, by a click of a button, like, you can say, hey, I'm interested. So me, I'm like, ooh, okay, I give all the information, like, I take time for that, and they never answer back. Real life story.
Yes.
So it's like, because it's so, things, like, technology help us so much in making things easy, but now we don't think, like, do I really, for example, for Facebook Market, do I really want to buy that? Is it gonna fit, right? It's like, oh, looks interesting. So you send the email to the seller, but then, like, you were not really interested, right? There was one person who was almost going to buy it. It was a kitchenette, by the way. It's old. But I had back and forth for approximately 4 weeks, 1 month, back and forth with that person. I was in vacation on Canada, so, like, she couldn't come, and then she was on vacation. So, but we had back and forth. And when it was come for her to come, I never heard anything back. So it was like, okay, non-attachment. So it's in every era of our life.
Yes. Yeah. The non-attachment thing is so, man, that's like a learned, like you said, it's in every area of our life, and it is very challenging to work on that, to not be attached to outcomes. And I will say, probably in my younger years, in my, like, 20s, I was very more rigid, and things need to go a certain way. Like, I used to plan events and parties for friends and families. I even did it for work. So I was very much, I had a list of the order of events, how things needed to go, and when things would not go to plan, I would let it ruin my day, or I would have big emotions about it. And if I could talk to 20-something Ashley now and be like, just release it, like, release that attachment to how it's going to go, and just learn to pivot and learn to let those things go. You know, I feel like I could have saved myself so much more time, so much more stress, you know, agonizing on how come this person didn't show up, or how come, you know, this was misspelled on the cake, or who knows. But just being able to be present in, can I control this? Can I change this? I can't. So let's just move on. You know, or what can I do about it in the present moment? Or do I even need to continue giving energy to this? Because that was energy. A big lesson. Yeah.
Giving energy to things that doesn't deserve your energy, like, you are not opening yourself up for something that really deserve, and that could be so much better. So, but I do also get that it's so hard in the moment. And I think the important part is, like, you gathering evidence why that didn't work that way. Because, okay, I'm gonna mention again the kitchenette. So it took 4 months to sell that kitchenette. 4 months. And I've never taken so long to sell a kitchenette. And I had several back and forth and so many people reaching out, never like answering back again. So I was like, okay. So initially I was like, and then I was like, okay, let it go, non-attachment. And then this one person, one lady, like we started to have a few back and forth, and turns out I'm so happy that I sold it to her. Her daughter was turning 3, and I received a photo afterward. And I don't know, the energy, first of all, the energy of the communications. I told my husband, I was like, I think this is it. Like, I think I can trust her. And before, I didn't have that feeling. It was like an attachment. But then, my inner voice was like, don't grasp on that. Maybe she's gonna do the same, right? Maybe she's gonna ghost you last minute. And then she was like, oh, could you keep it for me? My dad is gonna come to pick it up. He lives where you live. And I'm like, okay, wow. And he lives very close by the way. So I was like, that is cool. And then she was like, I could, put you a down payment. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay, well, sure. Like, money topic is already for me like a huge trigger. And I'm always like shy on asking anything like money. So when she was like, I can, pay you half and you get the half after, I was like, sure. And I was like, okay, this was a big thing for me. Because before I would be like, no, that's fine. But even more since it was not her who were coming and pick up the kitchenette. So anyhow, the dad came. We had such a great conversation, and like I learned a lot about the town and when they came and what she's doing in the life and how many children they have. And I was like, I felt such connections, and I was so happy that I was selling the kitchenette to them. And I told my husband, I was like, this was worth the wait. This was so worth the wait. I would not have sold that kitchenette. Well, I would. But like my soul was so happy that the kitchenette went to that little girl. The little girl, well, apparently she keeps like playing with it. Like, so, I don't know. I felt like these connections, even though I may never see them again. But I felt that there was a reason why it was not being sold for like 4 months, which I found was a very long time.
Right.
But to make that one little girl and the parents and the grandparents so happy. And to the point that I received a photo on the day of the birthday where the girl is playing with the kitchenette.
Oh my god.
That made my day. I was like, I'm so happy. So again, like gathering evidence why it didn't work. And by the way, why I was so anxious to sell that kitchenette is to have room so I can build a shelf for my son so he can put his Lego there. So that's why I was like, I need the space. We don't have a space to have the shelves plus the kitchenette. We could not. So I kept telling my son, be patient. And he was like, is it gone now? I'm like, not yet. So, but like the wait was so worth it. So I feel that sometimes it's very hard to wait when you really want something, or when you're looking for a job again, like that's sometimes the safety, it feels really unsafe. But there is nothing for no reason, and what is going to come back will be so much better. But yes, when you are in the loop, it's so hard to rationalize.
I agree with that, and I absolutely love that theme of, like, it's worth the wait, because it's easier said than done, right? And when you're in that loop of, you want the kitchenette sold so you can begin this project for your son, right? So you're on this timeline, but it's so cool to take this experience and like have that as an anchor for you to now when there's something else in your life that's taking a while, it's like, wait a second, this is similar to a situation, may not be the exact same thing, but when I waited and just trusted, right? Because you didn't pull your listing down. You didn't give up and say, well, whatever, I'm just taking this to Goodwill. You waited, and then it was like an outcome that was win-win. They got it, you got it sold, but then you also had this connection, and like it just brought up these great feelings. So I think that's important to note too, because this is something I did when I was going through my healing journey, I think last year. Well, I'm still going through it, but like at a point last year where I had a lot of fear coming up about big changes that were happening in my life. And my friend was sitting with me, and she's like, can you think back to a time where you felt like this before? And what happened? How did things come in? How did people come into your life? How did events happen that like changed it for the good? And so I started to kind of make a list of like, oh, there was this time when I didn't think I could go to this school event, and then somehow I ended up getting like a free pass to go to it. So I still got to go. I just had to wait. So it was like seeing these little moments of when things worked out. And again, using that as like an anchor or a way that you can ground yourself when you get in that loop and you start to feel frustrated. You know, you're stuck on an outcome. And not to say that we never want, you know, just throw all outcomes out the window. It's just sometimes when you find yourself stuck in that loop, just kind of zooming out and having that bird's eye view of, can I zoom out a little bit and see this in a different way, rather than be so fixated on, I need this event to happen the way I envisioned it, or else everything will fall apart. Because sometimes, I think probably more often than not, things go different than we have it in our mind, and it almost turns out better, or it puts us where we need to be. And it's like, oh, okay, well, this is actually better than I had in my mind. So awesome. Thank you.
I completely agree. But I want to add too that it's focusing on the better, because it's all about reception and perceptions too. And I've met some people in my life, and me too, actually. I've been a victim for a long time. So even though it was very good, when you live in a victimhood, even though it's better, you will be still focusing on what went wrong. If only I did this, that. And you don't focus on the outcome or how much better it is. And like you said, like focusing just on the outcome, if it doesn't go the way you want it, like you're gonna feel like a failure in the end, and you're gonna play the victim. However, if you see how things turn out, and yes, maybe it's not the outcome that you wanted or in the timing that you wanted, because well, the universe has its own agenda, has its own timing. It's not the same timing as us. And the journey that it takes to go there, when you start to notice the little things, it shifts your entire like view of it, and you can really appreciate. But if you stay stuck into the victimhood, like you are not gonna see that, because you are focusing on things that went wrong.
Yeah.
And it's easier now, I will talk for myself, but it's easier for me now to say, oh, well, focus on the good thing. But I also know that when I started, I didn't focus on the good things. And, you know, we'll use a word like some shitty things happen in my life. And I will gladly talk about my unemployment journey, actually, where the first time I got unemployed was at the end of a contract. And I was going to take a plane to go see my parents for a month the next day. I would receive unemployment paid in Canada for a full year, or I think it was for a year. And after 1 week, I was going to take the plane the next day. And my husband opened the door, coming home from his PhD. And I lost it, and I started to cry. And I was like, oh, my life is done. I don't have a job. And my husband's like, why are you crying? You're going on vacation for a month. And I was like, it was the end of the world. For the 6 next months, it was the end of the world. I didn't have a job. Until I started to shift, which turned out to be the best year of my life, where I started to do some work and then I started to travel. It was like small weekends here and there. And I started like to learn photography, and I started to learn how to sew. We say sew? Like, So, and then I found a job. So I was like, oh, well, I have all these things that I can do, but, well, I don't have time anymore. So that was the first time. The second time was 5 years ago, and I was such in a scarcity mindset. We had so many changes. We moved from Canada to the US. My husband found a job here. And a lot of change went, and I was a victim. I was not well. I was pretty depressed as well. That led to the journey that I'm there. But I saw like being unemployed it was dramatic. Nobody will want me. Nobody will want me. I will never find a job. And I found a job. Actually, they found me. I didn't apply to that job. The manager found me. And I love that job. And now, well, I got laid off 3 months ago from that job because of the market. And I'm going through my own journey, but so much more in peace. And when I learned about it, I had my sixth sense, like I kind of guessed, but I was at peace with their decisions. I understand, like all is well, right? It's okay, and it's not the end of the world. And I've been very at peace with that. Now I still have my ups and downs. I have my scarcity mindset. We can talk about it another time.
Yeah.
But yes, so that's, again, a journey, and it always circle back. Always circle back to that.
It's all our little soul's lessons. I love it. Man. Well, this was really fun that we got to pull a card today, and that obviously just sparked a whole bunch of conversations. But, man, so our card today was surrender comparisons with other people. Keep your eyes trained on yourself. Focus on your own strengths, attractiveness, and power. I love that.
Well, let's end with that beautiful card.
Yes.
And we will see you next week.
All right. We'll see you then.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you for joining us on this journey of self-discovery and spiritual awakening. We hope the stories and insights we've shared today have inspired you to embrace your abundant soul and live your life with more presence, purpose, and passion.
Remember, the path to awakening is unique for each of us, but we're all connected by our yearning for deeper meaning and authenticity. So keep an open heart and mind, and trust that the universe will guide you exactly where you need to go.
This has been the Abundant Soul Podcast. See you next Sunday as we continue to explore the depths of spiritual awakening and personal growth.